Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to understanding some of the really complex stories shaping our world. Today, we are plunging right into a geopolitical arena that's, well, it's been volatile for decades, but now feels like it's reaching a critical point. We're talking about Iran and Israel.
Hmm.
You know, it's this high-stakes rivalry, decades long, where every single move seems to trigger an immediate, calculated counter-move.
Exactly.
And the past few months, things have really escalated. I mean, we're seeing attacks blamed on Iran targeting Israeli interests, think drone strikes, cyber stuff.
Right. Pretty sophisticated attacks.
Yeah, and then Israel's response, they've really ramped up their military operations, especially in Syria.
Targeting those installations they see as Iranian threats, proxies.
Precisely. And it's gone beyond just, a simple tit for tat. Analysts are genuinely saying, look, this feels like we could be on the brink of something much bigger, a wider regional conflict.
Yeah, that phrase, on the brink, keeps coming up. And, this isn't just some distant news story for you. What's absolutely critical here, I think, is understanding why this specific conflict matters so much, not just regionally, but on the global stage.
Okay.
So first off, you've got Iran's nuclear ambitions. That's the big one. It's seen as a direct, almost existential challenge to Israeli security.
Right.
But it ripples out from there. It directly impacts U.S. interests, the whole power dynamic in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And actually, the possibility of Iran getting nuclear weapons has kind of ironically pushed some alliances forward faster than anyone expected.
You mean like the Abraham Accords?
Exactly like the Abraham Accords. These historic normalization deals between Israel and several Arab nations.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because a shared perception of threat, specifically from Iran, can really accelerate diplomacy. It makes old rivals find common ground much faster than traditional negotiations might. It's a real game changer.
That is a really interesting point about strange bedfellows almost. So it's not just state versus state, is it?
Yeah, not at all.
When we hear about Iran backing groups like, say, Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza, what's really driving that? Is it purely about shared ideology, or are there deeper, maybe more strategic calculations, like using proxies as a tool?
That's a great question. And look, ideology, shared narratives, they definitely play a part. There's a religious dimension, historical grievances, cultural identity. It's all mixed in. But the strategic calculation, I'd say that's paramount. By supporting these groups, Iran creates what you might call a forward defense, or maybe a deterrent ring.
Okay, so projecting power without direct confrontation.
Precisely. They don't need to put their own conventional forces right on Israel's border. These proxies let Iran exert influence, apply pressure, create a really significant threat for Israel, all while keeping some level of, plausible deniability. It's cost-effective for them, strategically speaking.
Right, gives them leverage.
Yeah, but it also creates this incredibly volatile situation. Any spark, any miscalculation could just ignite something much, much larger. It blurs the lines, makes it hard to respond in a kind of symmetrical way.
That makes total sense, like a distributed network, almost invisible sometimes. So, okay, the tensions are obviously sky high, but our sources also seem to hint that maybe, just maybe, there are some potential avenues for dialogue, ways to maybe ease the strain. It almost sounds counterintuitive given everything we've just said.
It does sound counterintuitive, yeah, but it's really important not to overlook this. Despite all the very public shouting and military moves, there are these intriguing reports, whispers of, let's say, backdoor communications, particularly between some of the Gulf states and Iran.
Really? What are they talking about?
Well, it's probably not about, grand peace treaties overnight. It's likely more about finding a way towards a quieter coexistence. Driven by pragmatism, really.
Right.
A recognition that constant conflict is just bad for business. It's destabilizing for everyone. So maybe exploring shared interests like maritime security or economic stability in the Gulf. Trying to find some path to de-escalate, away from the cameras.
Cautious steps.
Very cautious. And you absolutely have to balance that against Israel's position. They remain deeply apprehensive, understandably so. Their stance is still very firm. Zero tolerance for what they see as Iranian aggression, driven by those real fears about the nuclear program and the proxy network.
Right, trust is probably at rock bottom.
Exactly. So, while some Gulf states might be, testing the waters diplomatically, Israel's security concerns highlight just how massive the challenge of building any kind of trust really is. And then, layered on top, you've got the wider international community, the U.S., European nations. They're clearly calling for more dialogue, more diplomacy.
Trying to pull things back from the edge.
Yeah, the hope, I suppose, underlying all these efforts, public and private, is that maybe, just maybe, some mutual interests in basic stability and security can be found. Enough to pave the way for some kind of de-escalation. But it's a tall order.
It really is. It's sobering when you think about the ripple effects. This isn't just contained to Iran and Israel, is it?
No way.
Understanding all these complex threads, the military, the political, the historical, it feels critical, not just for the region itself, but like you said, for global peace, for security. And as we try to, unpack these narratives for you, our aim isn't about picking sides. It never is. It's about trying to better understand the bigger picture, the story that affects you. So let's leave you with this thought. What does all this actually mean for you? As we navigate these military moves, these historical echoes, these tentative diplomatic feelers, what do you think are the deeper implications of this ongoing conflict? And maybe more importantly, looking ahead, beyond the immediate crises. What kind of path, if any, could possibly lead to a more stable future for the Middle East? Something to think about.
Thanks for watching.